post-traumatic stress syndrome. Therefore, they're not stable enough to own a firearm. The minute we can't trust our veterans, especially our combat veterans, with firearms, then I guess it is time that nobody should be allowed to have them. Granted, there's a few folks out there that probably shouldn't have a gun. It's probably more than a few, actually. Most of them are criminals. There are a few unstables out there that are kind of scary. But the framers worded the Second Amendment in such a fashion to try to make it clear to the people at the time that all Americans were entitled to be able to defend themselves not only from wild animals and from burglars and criminals, but also from their government. That was the whole purpose of the Constitution, to give you a multitude of ways to protect yourself from a republic being twisted into a tyranny. That's the point. We got to step up. Now, Judge Garland may very well be a great guy, but right now he's a tool. He's a pawn in the showmanship game. So again, to recap, number one point. Judge Garland gives Barack Obama and the Democratic Party in particular the fuel to once again paint the Republicans as the obstructionist bad guys. Number two, Judge Garland gives some legitimate credence to him being a reasonable selection. So those accusations of being an obstructionist probably gained some traction, even among some folks who ordinarily would see right through the political showmanship that's going on. The political theater that we are currently a party to. Point number three, Mr. Your Honor Garland manages to do is, as someone who is a little soft on the Second Amendment and has a notorious record and a rather atrocious record on the Second Amendment, he gets to float around. So either the Republicans do eventually knuckle under and give him a hearing, and he gets a legitimate chance at that point, or through complete and total incompetence that the GOP establishment seems to be ramping up to new levels in this election cycle, they somehow screw up and manage to let the Democrats become the occupiers of the White House once again. And in that case, Merrick, as long as Barack doesn't withdraw his nomination, and he doesn't step aside from the nomination, doesn't withdraw himself, then he's still left on the table after the election. Then all of a sudden the Republicans are thinking, as a centrist, this may be our best bet. We know we're not going to get something good from Hillary or Bernie. So what do? They go ahead and they push him through. Because he's a centrist. Because he will be the best option they have on the table for at least another 4 years. And as long as they're in control of the House and the Senate, they certainly don't want to not have a full Supreme Court. Not for any extended period of time. Several months they're okay with. But when it gets right down to it, a couple of years, then all of a sudden even they start believing the press that they are just obstructionists. Let's face facts, after a while you have to say that is the case. But the truth of the matter is, again, one more time, for those that missed it the first 30 times I mentioned it, it's completely and totally up to the Senate whether or not they even have the hearings, or if they have the hearings, whether or not they confirm it. It's not up to Barack Obama. It's not up to Harry Reid. It's not up to Nancy Pelosi. It is up to the senators on the Judicial Committee, the leadership of that committee, as to whether or not there will be a hearing. And right now, that's firmly in the Republicans' hands. And even if there was a hearing, it would still be up to a majority-controlled Republican Senate to either confirm or not confirm. That is their role in this. That is their job. They are fulfilling their constitutional obligation. Just as Barack has already whined multiple times that he's just trying to do his constitutional duty, that's what they're doing too by standing in your way of making this nomination. Whether the process and the ideology behind wanting to wait till the next president is flawed or not. Because we know there have been occasions where Congress has waited, and there have been occasions, in fact, as recently as George W. Bush, where they went ahead and had a confirmation and put somebody on the court roughly about this far into an election year. A little bit earlier than now, actually, but, the longer they wait. To hear the worst part of it, Merrick Garland may very well be a very deserving judge at the position. In an average situation, in normal circumstances. Had it been Ruth Bader Ginsburg who had passed, if it had been Sonia Sotomayor in some tragic accident, if it had been one of those ultra-leftist activists that are on that court right now, then this guy would be a great choice. There probably wouldn't even be any hesitation over this guy. They talk tough about not giving Obama's selections a hearing. He selects somebody centrist, and they'll go ahead and replace him because they know the one place that he's really got a strong record of being weak as far as most conservatives would be concerned, again, that being the Second Amendment, they know they're going to get that anyway. So he's just replacing the same vote. Only this guy's been known to vote rather conservatively on occasions to find on behalf of conservative viewpoints on a lot of social and legal issues in regards to the Constitution. So he'd be a great replacement for one of those justices. But we're talking about Antonin Scalia here. We can't afford to lose one of the most staunch supporters of the Second Amendment and replace him with somebody who has a strong record of being anti-Second Amendment. We can't afford it. And that still ends up being what we get if one of those crazy scenarios pops up, that he actually ends up on the court. At the moment, it's not likely. Heaven forbid that it should occur. But it's not likely right now. So that's that. All right, well, I'm going to take one more quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to wrap up. So stay with me, and we'll be right back. Thanks.
So I took a little bow and left the room. I did a little dance in the shadows too. Met a little doll and she looked like you, just like you. Took a little time, fill my prescription, but there's not any left at all. She's standing naked by the window, waiting for me to fall asleep. eyes fall asleep. Took a little bow and left the room.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for staying with me through the break. That song's a little creepy, but I do kind of like it, I have to admit. Title there is Miscommunication, which, of course, seems a great title for a song in the world of politics, because after all, that's usually the excuse given after the fact, isn't it? At any rate, we'll want to clean up stuff real quick, but before we do the finals, I've got to do it. I've just got to do it. Here's the old roll-in. I'm sorry, I just got to play it. Hang on.
Delving past the headlines, sorting the familiar bias, exposing the propaganda, and challenging you to use your brain. It's time to tap into the truth.
Tap into the truth. Check us out at tapintothetruth.com for our latest blog post and for links to all of our past broadcasts. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and to follow us on Twitter. That's Tap Into the Truth. Right here. Alright, that was more than just a roll-in. Had to do it, though. Getting a little old school. It's been a while since I've done those taglines, and I still kind of like those taglines. And granted, I probably could have done that a little higher quality, but, give me a break. Rolled that out in the early days of the show when all I was working with was a laptop, period. The new studio is a little bit better than that, but really, it's still about all I'm working with. I love doing this show, though, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Noticed, based on trends and the BTR numbers, that seem to be getting back up to solid numbers. Quick reminder again, real quick, this coming Sunday at the BTR show, Walt Heyer will be on, and we'll be talking about transgender issues and try to get some resources to help and assist folks who have been having difficulty or regret involving their transgender decisions. And then the week after that, we will have Mark Meckler. He'll be coming onto the show, and we'll be discussing the Convention of States project. And we'll be talking about, basically, we'll be discussing questions so that we can delve into what needs to happen in order to reclaim the Constitution and the rule of law. So, it's going to be some great conversations. So Sunday, March 20th, and then Sunday, March 27th, got some pretty good guests coming. It's going to be informative, informational, and if you're a fan of the show, you're going to love it. And if you're just curious about the transgender issue, this guy actually is an expert, and he doesn't come from a place of judgment, so he's not like all towards transgenders. But, of course, the LBGT community is rather militant against him because he offers some alternatives. Oh my. You mean to suggest to me that there may be reasons why people would embrace that lifestyle and then feel bad about it later? Yeah, because, sometimes people are confused, and when they're confused, they give in to various pressures, and when they do that, sometimes they make wrong choices, and some of those wrong choices are things you just can't walk away from after you've done it. So at any rate, it should be interesting, and I think it will be informative, and should be some pretty good conversation as well as a lot of good information. At any rate, that is the next 2 Sundays on the BTR version of Tap Into the Truth, so please listen in live or catch the podcast